Hello and welcome. Today we've got Chris Burres, and today we are going to be discussing how sleep deprivation leads to death according to the Guinness Book of World Records. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to my Instagram channel at nicholas.veniamin, where you can follow all my daily news reels. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. How are you and what have you been up to?
Nicholas, I thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to talk about sleep. It's something that I've grown to have a passion in. What I've been up to, I think I shared with you, I'm preparing for an RV trip with my family. I'm doing like the Great Griswold Adventure. We're heading from Houston to the Grand Canyon in an RV. We rented a really big one. I was actually practicing over the weekend. So I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous about this driving across country in a vehicle larger than two of the vehicles I've ever driven before. So, but that's what's going on with me.
Well, it sounds very fun. It sounds fun. Now moving forward, so you're saying not only this is according to the Guinness Book of Record that sleep, a lack of sleep causes death. Um, but why did they remove it from the Guinness Book of World Record?
Well, that's precisely why. So, it was one of those things that they would, people would take on the challenge and win the Guinness Book of World Records. By the way, they're not the medical source of information, but like I think this is telling about how important this is. When they realized that sleep deprivation can cause death, they removed it as something that you could earn a world record in. So you might be able to deprive yourself. By the way, I wouldn't recommend it. Like the data on what happens to you physiologically, emotionally, intellectually when you don't get the right amount of sleep. It's scary. There's a book out there by Dr. Matthew Walker, 25 years of research. The reason he got into studying sleep is because he was looking at Alzheimer's and he realized Alzheimer's patients and he realized that Alzheimer's patients had horrible sleep patterns. So then he started focusing on sleep and all the detrimental things that happen to us when we don't get sleep. I call his book, Why We Sleep, the scariest book about sleep you'll ever read. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books. If you remember Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, he actually, this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but if you haven't watched it now, you probably never will. He scares you out of your dreams. In the case of this book, Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, he'll scare you to sleep. In fact, in the beginning of his book, he says, you know what? And he's got a great British accent, just like you. He's like, if you happen to fall asleep while you're reading this book, I would take it as a compliment, not as an offense, because he's actually trying to get people to sleep more. But yeah, sleep deprivation does have so many detrimental impacts on your health.
So when we talk about lack of sleep, I mean, how many hours are we talking here?
So would it surprise you if I told you that there was a multi-billion person medical experiment on sleep that we do twice a year around the world? It's a big number, right?
Mhm.
It's actually daylight savings time, right? So those regions that participate in daylight savings time, the population exceeds 1 billion people. And each 2 times a year, one part of the year, they add 1 hour of sleep, and one part of the year, they remove 1 hour of sleep. And the data shows that when they remove that 1 hour of sleep, there's a 24% increase in heart attacks. And when they add that hour of sleep, there's a 21% decrease in heart attacks. So just 1 hour of sleep will increase your chance of a heart attack. 1 hour less of sleep will increase your chance for a heart attack by 24%, right? It depends on your demographic, et cetera. But as a population on whole, and think about this, this is a global phenomenon. This is independent of your race, independent of your sex, independent of your income. Like there's a 24% increase in heart attacks when you lose that hour of sleep. So what Dr. Matthew Walker says in his book is make sure you're getting 7.5 to 9 hours of what he calls sleep opportunity. Those 7.5 to 9 hours where you're in bed for the purpose of sleeping, not reading, not anything fun. You should do that in bed, yes, but it should be before you're preparing. That doesn't count as going to sleep. And it really is important, especially when you look at like a 24%. By the way, other stats are similarly high. accidents across the globe go up when you lose that hour of sleep. So car accidents, all sorts of things are detrimentally impacted when we don't get enough sleep.
How about this? How about when you're someone who travels a lot and you're jet lagged and you didn't sleep well on the plane? You come home, you're buzzing, you're not ready to sleep yet. You have a shower, you go out, and it really hits you. It's like, wow, I need to sleep now, and you're all over the place. Does that affect your heart?
Absolutely. Again, so it is well documented that let's just kind of throw you potentially in that scenario in the category of a shift worker, right? Even even though shift workers may be getting 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity every night, when they sleep is outside of the natural circadian rhythm, right? So they're sleeping during the day. Your circadian rhythm is the rhythm that puts your sleeping and waking patterns in line with the rising and falling of the sun, right? So ostensibly, and there's a window. Different people will get up a little bit before the sun rises. Different people will get up a little bit after, but there's a tight window. You tend to wake up when the sun rises. You tend to go to sleep and get prepared for going to sleep when the sun sets. If you are a shift worker and you're actually sleeping during that time, the detrimental health impacts are significant, right? So if you can avoid shift work, you really should avoid shift work. And when you talk about traveling to a totally different time zone, like your pattern is way off. By the way, when my wife and I are traveling, we're making sure that we take this. We actually are taking the tablets, which I had here. They are taking the tablets. It's always good to hear the tablets shake, because they're good to get through TSA, right? To get through security. And when my wife and I typically land in a place, we actually were fortunate enough to visit Egypt recently. We just don't miss a beat. And just to share with you, on one day, the tour guide picked us up at 4 a.m. because we had a morning thing, and we finished at 8:30 p.m. Now we probably took a nap or two in the bus from like one place to the next, from like one monument to the next. But we have full days in a place that is outside of our normal sleep cycle. And that is, we believe, because of the C60 Evo. And it's good for just not having that kind of long of a day, but managing that jet lag.
Now, speaking of the daylight saving, I know it's a little bit political, but why do we have it? I mean, I know it's for farmers. I know it's for farmers, but why don't they just keep it for the farmers? Why does the whole world have to change it? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if our days did, stay longer, and it did start getting darker slightly later. And I think it's a very relevant question, since this is the month that we are going to be having longer days. We're going to be changing the clocks at the end of this month, I believe. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've looked into this, and a lot of people say it's for farmers, and each time, I've never gotten to a concise answer, and that's probably just because I haven't spent enough time digging into it and really getting to it. But one of the concepts that comes up is like the cows. Like if you're talking about raising cattle or any sort of farm animal, they don't care what time it is, right? They wake up when the sun comes up, and they don't care if you want to call that 6 a.m. or you want to call that 7 a.m. They don't care. Like they just need to be fed. And I think conceptually people are like, oh, you could end up with more daylight hours. I don't know that that's the actual case. And so a lot of people say farmers, but the last time I kind of dug into this, they're like, it's not farmers. Then I'm with you. Like, what is it? And it doesn't really make sense. Why are we doing this? Maybe it fits into, big pharma going, hey, we can increase our medical conditions when we adjust the time. And so let's keep that time adjustment, because, literally a 24% increase in heart attacks when we lose that hour of sleep.
Or they want your children walking back from school when it's very dark and dangerous. I don't know. I don't know, because it's quite depressing when it's dark. And the deep state want us depressed. It's political. They want us stressed so they can control us, just like they do with big pharma. So tell me, let's talk about the olive oil, because that's what I take, and that's my favorite. That's what I love. That's what you just showed us now. The link is below in the description for anyone who wants to get some. But let's talk about, how does it get into your molecules? What does it exactly do? I think my viewers really want to hear the scientific part of how it works in your body?
Well, you reminded me, it's been a busy day. And when I have busy days, I tend to take an extra little serving. So I'm going to pop 5 mils. I use my medicine cup and down the hatch. I do that when I have days that are busier, when I want more mental focus and more energy. Um, and so sleep is something that's fundamentally important. What you're asking is, what is it doing in our body? Like, why might it be positively impacting sleep? And well, let's kind of go back to basics, right? So I'm holding up a molecule, right? A model of a molecule, obviously. And the best way to describe it is it looks like a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball, or football in your case, where the lines on the soccer ball or football represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you got 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball or a football. I would prefer football, but I just grew up here. So football makes so much more sense. And it was discovered in 85. The three scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996. So a short 11 years from being discovered to being awarded the Nobel Prize. The molecule is amazing. It performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is where people get nervous because you're like, I thought we were talking about something that I would consume. In fact, the story gets a little scarier first. They thought because of one of the shapes, one of the facets on that football or soccer ball, one of the facets is reminiscent of benzene. And so benzene is known to be toxic, known to be a carcinogen. And they thought this molecule would be toxic. So they put it in a toxicity study. Now, my lab actually provided the material. My lab is mentioned in that original peer-reviewed published research. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, that's because of this formula, right? The C60 EVO and olive oil formula. And I'm with you. I like the olive oil. I'll be honest. I'm a weird cookie. I really don't like olives. Like I don't want them on my pizza. I don't even want them around my pizza. Like I just don't like olives. But olive oil I can drink all day. And we use a high quality extra virgin olive oil, so it does tend to leave a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. Some people are a little surprised by it, and actually don't like it. And we're like, hey, that's a high quality extra virgin olive oil. That's just what it tastes like. Take it with a little bit of bread, take a sip of water. So then when you start thinking, great, we've got this amazing molecule. It was supposed to be toxic. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects live 90% longer. Like, why is this happening? And I'm going to frame this. Let's go directly to kind of framing it with sleep. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this molecule, we call it ESS60, the soccer ball shaped molecule, that it gets into the mitochondria. We also know that ESS60 can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. And what that means is the mitochondria, powerhouse of every cell, it has a negative byproduct as it's generating energy for the cells. And that negative byproduct is called ROSs, reactive oxygen species. They are negatively charged particles. And when you think about why you might take a vitamin C or why you might take vitamin D or E, these known antioxidants, it's because you're trying to prevent those reactive oxygen species from doing damage, right? So it's counteracting those. So we know this is in the mitochondria. We know that it can hold up to 6 of these reactive oxygen species. In the mitochondria, when it's creating them, it has its own in-house cleaning system. That cleaning system is made up of primarily glutathione and melatonin. So this is where we're getting right into the sleep space, right? Because we're familiar with melatonin. Not only is it a hormone, it's the hormone that signals it's time to sleep in your body. And it's a great antioxidant resident in all of your mitochondria in your cells. So this ESS60 molecule is there. It got a great parallel of, hey, it's in the same place as this mitochondria, potentially managing those reactive oxygen species, but in a slightly different way. And the way we think the ESS60 molecule is managing those reactive oxygen species is by holding on to them, preventing them from doing damage. And then when the body's able to replenish those management tools, glutathione and melatonin, They come, handcuff themselves. I use a kind of a police analogy onto the reactive oxygen species on that paddy wagon and take them out of your body. So that's what we really think is happening. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to do the manage the negative byproduct of having a weak amount of melatonin, right? That's why we think we're positively impacting sleep. And your mitochondria is ubiquitous in your system. And every cell in your body has between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria. Your brain cells and your nerve cells have 2 million mitochondria. So if you're impacting positively how those go about creating energy and the negative byproducts, then you're going to have head to toe testimonials like we get on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the testimonials, bearing in mind what we've just discussed here. What type of testimonials have you got from people using the olive oil?
Well, let me start with just a generic. I like to kind of go through our current testimonial list on Google. And I've just got, I'll read a short one and then I'll talk about a couple of specific ones related to sleep. So this one is from Jenny. It says, wow, they really care about their customers. And we do. That's both our customer service department and our company as whole. The products are so diverse and amazing. And she's talking about the fact that we have products for animals, dogs and cats. We have skin serums, and we have 2-part skin serums, which is pretty phenomenal product. When you think about sleep, I love what my business coach said. He said for 50 years, this is prior to taking the C60 Evo formula, for 50 years, I needed an alarm clock to wake me up. And since I've been taking really the ESS60 molecule, I've been waking up before the alarm clock. And I like this testimonial for a number of reasons. One of them, it's simplicity. Like it's just really simple. The next is that it's binary. So we may talk about this study that we did, a kind of a smaller study, but it's very binary. Before the product, I needed an alarm clock. After the product, I don't need an alarm clock. This binariness makes it really clear that this is a positive impact and how. I like that much better than, oh, I feel like my sleep is better. Although I'm going to talk about a kind of feely interpretation of the survey study we did. But I like these binary types of testimonials.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you very, very much for sharing everything with us today. I'm going to leave the link below in the description where everyone can have a look at the olive oil. They've got access to these great benefits. Chris, is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Yeah, when they go to the link, and it's in the show notes, there's 2 things. One, you'll land on a page. We have this ESS60 molecule in 3 oils. It's in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. If you're looking for which one, a lot of people are like, hey, what should I take if I'm going to try something new? We always recommend the olive oil for 2 reasons. The first reason is we're a science-based organization, and all the research is actually in ESS60 and olive oil, right? So that's the first one. And then the second, we can actually get more of this ESS60 molecule into olive oil than we can in avocado or MCT oil. So do that. Also, if you're going to try the product, we've got a 20% discount when you go on subscription. Go ahead, get on subscription. Don't worry. You can cancel at any time. Our team has like 850 plus 5-star reviews. They're not trained to talk you out of your subscription. Just take advantage of that discount. Also, you have a discount code that's going to be, I'm assuming that's going to be in the notes as well. That gets you another 10% off. So take advantage of those discounts. We just really want you to try and enjoy the product. And remember, our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. I think that's what a lot of us need these days, is that focus and energy, and then certainly that better sleep.
Absolutely. Well, the link will be below. And Chris, again, thank you very, very much. And we'll speak again very soon. You take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nicholas.